Thank you, Bentley. Hannah raced down the dusty road, kicking up dirt and pebbles as she ran, one pebble lodging between her toes. When she arrived at Sarah's house, limping, she pounded on the front door, pulled off her sandal, shook it out, wiggled and slid her foot in the dirt to dislodge the pebble, and was shoving her foot back into the sandal as Sarah opened the door. Grabbing Sarah by the arm, Hannah pulled her outside and said frantically, "Come on, we have to go. Turnip is missing." Sarah was both delighted and horrified. A new mystery to solve meant a new adventure with her best friend. But a missing, beloved donkey was not good news. "Mama, I'm going to Hannah's," Sarah yelled as the girls slammed the front door and ran towards Hannah's house. Once there, Sarah commanded Hannah to tell her everything. "Well," Hannah said in her most dramatic voice, "I think the mystery started last night. Papa was out in the courtyard talking to someone. I tried to see what was going on, but Papa made me stay inside. I hid by the window to listen, but all I heard was the man say they needed it. I don't know what it was, but I got up this morning and went out to give Turnip his turnips, and he was gone." "Hannah, what did you do?" "I looked everywhere, and then I screamed for Mama and Papa, and you know what they did?" When Sarah shook her head, Hannah muttered, "They told me to be quiet and calm down." "Mama told Papa, why didn't he explain everything to me already? And Papa said he thought I was still sleeping. Then he told me everything was all right and Turnip will be back tonight, and I'm not supposed to tell anyone he's gone. I'm not even supposed to tell you. He made me promise." "Hannah, you broke your promise." "No, I did not. I crossed my fingers behind my back. And besides, I told Papa he wasn't even telling me a good secret. He didn't even tell me where Turnip is. So we have to go look for him to make sure he's not scared without me." "But Hannah, what about the man who came to your house last night?" "Oh yeah, I think the it he needed was Turnip. The man said someone would come back this morning and untie it, and Papa was supposed to say, 'Why are you doing that?' And they would say, 'Cause the Lord needs it.' And Papa would say, 'Okay,' and they would take it. And now Turnip is gone. So I think the it they needed was him, and we need to find him. And," Hannah paused for a breath, "you know what else I think?" Sarah shook her head, waiting. She knew to do these things. "I think the governor needs Turnip for his big parade today." It was no big surprise to anyone that Pilate was entering Jerusalem that day, nor that the annual event would be held with great pomp and circumstance and with impressive displays of wealth and military might. What might have surprised people was that some miles away, in the opposite direction, a smaller gathering of people prepared for their own entry into the city. While Peter had been in the city the night before meeting with Enoch, Hannah's papa, the rest of the group had talked, questioning Jesus about his plans, some urging courage, others urging caution. Some had impressed upon him the importance of starting out from the Mount of Olives in order to fulfill the words of the prophet Zechariah, who had foretold that God would arrive via the Mount of Olives, bringing in the new kingdom, the new era. Some were ready to do battle for him, to help him usher in that new kingdom. But Jesus was still working to impress upon them the nature of his teachings, the nature of God's purpose, the business of love. And so, just as Pilate would come riding into town on a horse trained for war, Jesus would ride the lowliest of beasts, an animal used for plowing fields and carrying burdens. Jesus chose a donkey to show that he came in peace. Even so, his mother's fears grew. She had called him to her side and said, "Son, you do know that this is sedition. You know what they will do to you." He knew. He knew that if a group of Israelites was planning to gather and walk together anywhere, Roman soldiers would be right there with them. And when the governor was coming to town, the soldiers would be on high alert, ready to squelch any act of rebellion. What Jesus was planning was extraordinarily risky. And now he had no words of comfort for his mother, no words to counter her words of truth. All he could do was look to her future and to all that that day would bring. But at this particular moment, he stood scratching his head, pondering the donkey before him. With his mane and his tail neatly braided and flowers painted on his bridle, Turnip looked as if he were ready for a parade. He also looked about as interested in cooperating as any obstinate 2-year-old. "Peter, really? This is the donkey you came up with?" Peter merely shrugged. "I knew Enoch and Elizabeth wouldn't mind if you borrowed one of theirs." "I understand that, but why would you choose a colt that's never been ridden? You know they have to be taught to accept a rider, right?" Peter thought quickly. "I thought you should have the honor of being the first to ride him." James, who along with his brother John had brought Turnip out to Jesus that morning, chuckled. "More like the honor of having him toss you into the dirt, Rabbi. Peter needs to stick with fishing." Jesus gave a wry smile and turned back to the beast in question. "Okay, let's see what we can do. Come here, donkey. I'm guessing you like turnips." "What you doing, Hannah?" Cousin Caleb hollered at her as she and Sarah neared the marketplace. Caleb and 2 of his friends were walking towards them. "We're looking for Turnip. He disappeared, and we think he's going to be in the governor's parade today." As the boys laughed, Caleb asked, "Why would the governor want a silly little donkey in his parade when he and his soldiers have all those big fancy horses?" "Hey, you girls aren't doing your stupid sister Snoopy thing, are you?" Caleb's friend Isaac asked. "For your information," Hannah informed him loftily, "we are the super secret spy sisters, and we are going to find Turnip and solve this mystery." "Yeah?" asked Caleb's friend Jonah. "Well, if you want to find your donkey, you're going the wrong way. 2 men walked past my house with him early this morning. They were going down the road to the Mount of Olives, so good luck catching them." Hannah and Sarah changed course and set off once again, more determined than ever to rescue Turnip from his captors, for now they were certain that poor Turnip had been stolen away by devious thieves. Truly, who would walk around someone's house, enter their courtyard, and untie their donkey? Hannah's parents had surely been fooled, what with all the fancy words about the Lord needing him. It obviously hadn't been the governor. The girls stopped at Hannah's house to grab some pita bread stuffed with fresh goat cheese, then set out again. They hadn't traveled far when they heard voices approaching. As a group of people came around a curve in the road, the most wonderful sound Hannah had ever heard filled the air. A donkey braying. And not just any donkey. There in the middle of the group walked Turnip. Arms spread wide, Hannah ran and threw herself around the donkey's neck. "Oh, I found you, Turnip. I was so worried. You'll be fine now." "Hello, Hannah," a voice spoke beside her. Hannah turned, her mouth dropping open as she noticed the man holding on to Turnip's reins. "Sarah!" she hollered and turned back to her friend, nearly bumping noses with her, as Sarah was actually standing shoulder to shoulder with her. "Jesus!" Sarah said, throwing herself into his arms. "Goodness, we haven't seen you since you made Cousin Lazarus come back from the dead. He sure was stinky." "You should go tell him that, Sarah. He's right over there." Jesus nodded toward the back of the group of travelers. Before Sarah went in search of her cousin, she asked, "Are you taking Turnip to be in the governor's parade?" "Not exactly," Jesus said, but before he could explain any further, Hannah, now also hugging him, took over the explanation. "Sarah, I finally figured it out. The Lord has need of him. Get it? Not the governor, the Lord, the real one, him." "But I don't understand," she said, looking up at Jesus. "Why do you need Turnip?" "We're going to make a little parade of our own today." Jesus gave Hannah one last squeeze and handed her the reins. "So Hannah, tell me something about Turnip. My friends thought he had never been ridden before, but I didn't have any problem climbing on his back. Why do you think that is?" Hannah gave a little giggle, a sheepish look on her face. "Turnip and I might have practiced a bit. Just don't tell Papa." "I think I'll tell you thank you." Jesus winked at her. "Now tell me what else Turnip likes to eat." As Hannah and Sarah walked back towards the city with Jesus and his friends, Turnip plodded happily at Hannah's side. Hannah occasionally reached up to scratch his cheek. "Jesus," she asked, "could we be in the parade with you?" Jesus looked off into the distance. Only he fully understood what was to come. But for today, there was joy. Let two little girls run alongside this gallant steed. Let them shout their delight and their love. Even Jesus himself might find moments of happiness as he looked upon the faces of so many whom he loved. Of course, as long as your mamas and papas say it's all right. The girls squealed in glee and ran off to gain parental permission. Jesus smiled wistfully after them, his heart filled with love. He glanced about at his friends, James, John, Peter, Judas, and he wondered. Leaning his head against the donkey's neck, he sighed, "Whatever will be." It was in the form of a prayer. Halting his steps momentarily, Jesus turned and kissed his mother on the cheek. "I love you," he whispered. To his friends, he said, "Let's go have a parade." Amen.